Are religious differences a bigger threat to a budding romance than skin colour? 0871 231 5555, that's the number to dial. The Right Stuff team is there. They are ready and waiting to take your calls, and we'll hear those calls straight after some important commercial information. What percentage of Brits would object to their son or daughter marrying someone of a different race? 7%, 27%, or 57% of us Brits? The answer, just 7%. Yes, according to an ICM poll, a total of 7% of us would oppose if our son or daughter tried to marry someone of a different race. Interestingly, that figure would more than double, rise to 15%, when the same people asked if they would just harbour deep reservations but not speak out. You're watching The Right Stuff. With me today we've got Vanessa Feltz, Dr. David Bull and Carrie Grant. And thanks, by the way, for your calls, emails and text messages. Keep them coming. In a little while, what do you get, why do you get, I should say, your kids to call their private parts funny names? So why can't you use the proper Latin names? Willy and front body, as my mummy explained to me. 0871 231 5555 is the number to call. We'll also be trying to hunt out the silliest names, as well as asking why we all do it. And don't forget either, the new film, you may have heard of it, Bride and Prejudice, which premiered last night, is a Bollywood take of Jane Austen's classic novel. An Asian girl falls in love with a white guy, and suddenly it's not just social class that divides, but race and culture. Okay, that's what we're talking about. Well, that got us thinking, this movie, about mixed-race relationships generally, especially as two of our panel are here in just that situation. In fact, the number of mixed-race couples has increased steadily over the last 15 years, to the point where the Institute for Social and Economic Research came to the conclusion that Britain has the highest rate of interracial relationships in the world, 10 times above the European average. Why is that? Is love colourblind? Or do cultural differences eventually come between you? Perhaps you would consider dating someone of a different colour, but not of a different religion. What would your family say or do if you were in a mixed-race romance? So, well, before we hear what the panel think, our Shay was at the premiere of Bride and Prejudice last night to find out what the stars thought.
What does it take for a mixed-race relationship to work?
Love. I've fancied each other.
Yeah.
Like normal relationships.
I
think the only times I've experienced problems is when the talk of marriage has come up, because everyone wants their own traditional things. But if you compromise, that's what it's all about.
I think it's a question of time. I think if you look at our generation compared to our parents' generation, you know, we're much more open. I think our kids will be much more open, you know, to mixing it around a bit. I mean, I made Bhaji on the Beach in 1994 with a black and Asian relationship, and now I know there's lots of mixed-race couples all over.
I think respect for each other's background and who people are and where they come from really is the most important thing. I think if you acknowledge who the person is that you're in love with and vice versa, then nothing else should really get in the way. I mean, it sounds weird for me to preach, but, you know, it's kind of the truth.
Nicely put as well. Okay, let's start with you, Danny and Vanessa.
Yes.
Mixed race. Why is Britain so good at mixed race relationships?
I just think we've got such a fantastic choice out there. There are just so many people. You know, and you know, we've got so much more freedom than we ever had before, and we're just as likely to fall in love with somebody from a different background.
We really are. I mean, Britain, if you look at the statistics, we are miles out in front. Why is it Britain?
We've got a tradition of liberalism and tolerance and a spirit of adventure and a bit of eccentricity, and you know, because we've got the opportunity, and it's fantastic. That's what I think.
Any problems?
Well, you know, when I started going out with Dennis, who at the time was, you know, had long rasta locks and everything and didn't look anything like the nice Jewish doctor that I used to be married to, my father said, "Your life is over. No Jewish man will ever marry you now." And I said, "Dad, you were born in Lewisham. Why are you talking like Topple and Fiddler on the Roof?" You know, it was not what I was supposed to do, you know, but as all those people just said on the film, you know, when you love someone, you love them. And it wasn't because he was black, it was because he was him.
Okay, yeah, no, I accept that,
you know?
absolutely, and that makes perfect sense, but I wonder, I kept making reference to relatives, family.
Yeah.
What two people do between each other, that's always their business. It's when other people chip in with their views. So, yeah, I mean, you mentioned your father there. Other grief from relatives and friends or not?
I think amazement, and then, of course, you know, obviously the charm and the humour and the personality that captivated me within seconds wins through. And so whatever, you know, ridiculous prejudice might exist before, you can dispel it really quite quickly just by, you know, exposing somebody to the company and the you know, the influence of somebody else. And I think it's the best possible thing for my kids.
Do you think you'd be saying the same thing if you lived in, I don't know, Norfolk, for example, where I lived, where there aren't a lot of black people around?
Good Lord, having seen the people in Norfolk, I think they need a great influx of as many different cultures as possible as quickly as possible. Stop all that inbreeding, that's what we need to do.
Oh, Vanessa. Now, Carrie, you and David have been what together? Nearly, unbelievably, 20 years.
Yeah. And
so you must have seen how things have changed in this country as well.
I mean, I was amazed when I first met David how kind of the racist situations that he had to take in every single day was just incredible. I was stunned by that. But us as a couple, we have never had any problems really. We had a couple of months with my parents just before we got married, but then they were very nice after 2 months and said sorry that we had those views. And again, they lived in a little town.
Fear? Are we talking about fear?
Yeah, we're talking about fear, but I think two people can be passionate about their own cultures, be together and share that passion. I love David's West Indian culture. It's fantastic. However, if people are passionate about their religions, I think that is a bigger problem, because if you are fastidiously into something and your partner's fastidiously into something else, that is an issue. But cultures, no. I love West Indian food. I love West Indian humour. I love sitting in David's family home and everyone shouting and singing and speaking and laughing, and it's so loud. In my house, there was silence when I was growing up.
I must ask as well, because of the length of time you've experienced here, why is Britain so good at mixed race relationships? 10 times higher than Europe. #1 in the world.
Well, I think some of it, it's funny because I think for me, I have to separate, there's black Africans, black West Indians. That's two different cultures. Very different cultures. There's a bigger difference between West Indian culture and white English, like myself, to a Nigerian culture. But I think, certainly in London, we have so many different cultures that actually it's become such a mishmash that we have all become a little bit of a lot of cultures. The Jewish culture, fantastic culture.
And that's how loud it is in our house. but I would say, though, that you do realise the difference when you go abroad together. Because, you know, we touched down in France, and it's only across the channel, and my goodness, the difference, the looks, the sort of aversion, you know, Dennis being stopped as we come out of department stores, that kind of thing, people assuming you're not together. We went to a nightclub in Paris, and I thought, what's weird about this place? I was looking around, what's strange? I realised there's not one black person in the whole place. And I said, where are all the black guys? And they said, oh, they have their own place. And I thought, my God, and that is so different from England, isn't it?
Do you think, for the two of you, though, because you both live in London, that we're in a very cosmopolitan society?
I think the whole of the UK is cool, extremely.
Okay, well, you'd agree with that as well? Okay.
I don't know why, though. I don't know why that is.
I'm actually quite surprised to hear that from both of you. I really am. Let's throw it open to you at home and find out if that's also the case and why you may think that Britain is so good at mixed-race relationships.
There are parts in Sheffield that aren't so cool about it. I know that. Let's go to Jessica from Hertfordshire on line 2.
Thanks, Colin. Jessica, good morning.
Good morning.
Far away. Mixed-race relationships. What's your views?
I think England is a really great place to be if you're in a mixed relationship.
What about Wales and Scotland?
I wouldn't know. I mean, I grew up in New York, and I think being there as well, it was very different there. I mean, there weren't as many mixed relationships when I was growing up. But in England, when I first met my husband, I mean, he'd never really encountered many Asian people before, so it was quite different for him as well. But he had such an open mind, and I think English people do have very open minds about different cultures because they're so exposed to it as well. And I think that just made it easy right from the go.
Let's touch on that for a minute. You say we're so exposed to it. I find New York's an amazing mix of different, not just colours, but different, different races, all from around the world. Everybody's there in a melting pot. But you said it yourself. There's not so much interracial romance going on, but there is in Britain. And
I think because in New York it's such a large population as well. There's so many people from so many different places, and they all tend to come they all tend to sort of migrate to certain areas. And then it becomes like a little India here, a little China here. So they become enveloped in their own little communities again. And even where I come from, in Gibraltar as well, my family lived there. It's a very enveloped culture as well in the Asian society. So it just becomes like it is everywhere else.
Right, Jessica.
But in England, in London especially, it's so integrated. It's a small place, and people do really get to find out about each other.
Okay, Jessica. I always look forward to finding out about other people. Thank you very much for the call. Let's have another one, please.
Let's go to Phil from London on line 4.
Thank you very much. Phil, good morning.
Good morning.
Morning.
My comment was, I'm from America. I've been living in the UK for 3 years.